Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long at the Wild Wild West, Tropicana, and Harrah's Resort Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. I'm Mike Gill. Andrew DiCecco here on a Tuesday as the Eagles turn their attention quickly to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We got news already for the game. We'll get into that and so much more as Andrew kind of takes a look back at the win, looks ahead to the next opponent, the Tampa Bay Bucs, and he is here on Football at 4. Andrew, what's going on, pal?
Hey, Mike, how's it going?
Everything's good, and obviously before we turn our attention to a Thursday night game, which has already got some storylines tied into it, I want to get your take back at the game we just saw. I mean, obviously an ugly game, but somehow they pulled out a victory there. What are a couple of things from that game that stand out and the way they were able to kind of fight their way to their second win of the year?
Well, obviously you have to look at turnovers, and turnovers are something that they always say come in bunches, and obviously the Eagles had three of them, three interceptions, two from Darius Slay and one from Steve Nelson. But the defensive line was something that was one of my main takeaways from that game. The different line games that they were playing, freeing up Fletcher Cox and letting him pick up his first sack of the season. Javon Hargrave, of course, continued his tear. Josh Sweat got some good pressure. Derek Barnett really had a nice game as far as applying pressure. I thought that they really capitalized against a very undermanned Panthers offensive line, and now you want to see Ken Jonathan Gannon take that blueprint and carry it over to Thursday night. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a vastly superior offensive line than they faced last Sunday, so we'll have to see what happens there. But that was one of my main takeaways, and that sort of fueled that victory.
Yeah, I know that a lot of people, Hargrave gets the sack, but Fletcher Cox, he was getting much maligned. Did he have a better game? Did he stand out? Did he do something different? Did they use him differently? What did you see from big old number 91?
I thought that the different stunts and twists that they used, I thought that he was freed up a little bit more. And is he the player that he once was, that dominant? He's a six-time Pro Bowler, but he doesn't have that burst that we're accustomed to seeing from him. But he's still a very good player, right? I mean, him and Javon Hargrave seem to be playing off each other quite well. At least they did on Sunday. And now you want to see, can you build on that on Thursday night? And I thought that Fletcher showed some good burst and power, and he definitely created some penetration, and that's what you need to see from him, because he's someone that they're going to need, him and Hargrave, if they want any chance of hanging with Tom Brady and his offensive weaponry.
I know you wrote about the front four dominating, but another guy who I guess I want to get your take on how he was included, which was Jannard Avery. If you look at the stat sheet, you would say this guy was included. So what was it? How did they get Avery involved in the defense?
Yeah, they used him around the line of scrimmage a lot, and that Sam linebacker role, and use him as like a fastball off the edge. And he really provides more than what they've got from a lot of those other players. I mean, Patrick Johnson got the start a couple of weeks ago, but he's not really equipped right now in his brief NFL career to really take that mantle and be that third linebacker. I thought T.J. Edwards would have played a little bit more than Avery, but Avery obviously provides that pass rush prowess. But week to week, I feel like this is going to change, because then you saw Jannard Avery not really be a factor over the past couple of weeks previous. So we'll have to see if they saw what they liked, if they saw something that they could take advantage of. Obviously, they did with the offensive line situation of the Panthers. So now we need to see. They're going to have to throw the kitchen sink at Tom Brady, because that offensive line is pretty sturdy.
Davion Taylor made his first appearance in the defense. How did they use him, and what stood out? Can they use him more? Should they use him more? What did you see from Taylor, who was a guy who, not a lot of people had a lot of expectations for?
Yeah, Davion Taylor, he played 34% of the snaps, and he really impressed me with his range and lateral agility and pursuit to the ball carrier. He plays with urgency. At least he played with urgency the other day, and that's really what you want to see from your former third-round pick. And he's clearly the most athletic linebacker that they have, and he plays with like his hair is on fire, and he always is pursuing the football. I think him and Alex Singleton really complement each other pretty well, and it's nice to see Davion Taylor get involved. Obviously, he started camp very promising, but then he suffered that injury, which set him back quite a bit, and it was nice to see him sort of find his way, and Eric Wilson sort of take a little bit of a back seat. He saw a regression in his snaps, which really you needed to see because he's sort of been a liability out there, to put it mildly, particularly against the run. And I think that there's sort of, as this season sort of goes along, Mike, I think Jonathan Gannon sort of seeing what he has with his personnel and trying different things and seeing what works, different combinations. And this week or last week it was Jannard Avery, and you saw some more Davion Taylor.
Hey, we got 3 interceptions. I know you tweeted about the turnovers. You got 2 from Slay, 1 from Nelson. What happened? Why were the corners a bigger factor in the game this week?
Well, it was pressure, right? Sam Darnold has gotten off to a really, really hot start this season, 3 consecutive 300-yard games. But he's a different player when you apply pressure on him. He forces things. I mean, he has that famous comment on the sideline, I believe, that he was seeing ghosts. It was one of those primetime games. And, you get 2 of these defensive tackles in your face, and you have Derek Barnett flying off the edge. And, you're taking these hits that you're not accustomed to taking because you sort of had an easy slate of games, let's face it, in the early portion of the season for them. All of a sudden, you start trying to hoist these balls up there and trying to make a play, and you start pressing, and the plays aren't there to be made because you have guys in your face, and you're trying to hurry the throw. And fortunately, I mean, for the Eagles, you have a guy in Darius Slay, big play Slay. He lived up to his name on Sunday. And Steve Nelson sort of sealed the game with that interception at the end. But that all starts with the defensive line applying pressure, getting in his face, the defensive tackles moving him off his spot, and laying a couple hits on him early and letting him know, sort of setting the tone for the game. And he didn't look like he looked flustered and scattershot for much of that game.
Yeah, he sure did. And we talked about it Friday. He's a turnover guy. He will turn the ball over. They got to him, and they made him turn the ball over 3 times in the game. So the Eagles defense did their part. You mentioned in InsideTheBirds.com, your preview, that the X factor would be Kenny Gainwell. While he had a couple of carries, I don't know if he was a big X factor. I guess moving forward, do you anticipate seeing more of Gainwell? And that's based on a lot of things. But, among them, hey, late in the game, Sanders doesn't get out of bound there, stuff like that. Are we starting to see more and more that the Eagles simply just do not trust Sanders and that we might see more put on the plate of Gainwell?
Yeah, I mean, you sort of saw them lean on Miles late in that game, and then he really hurt he could have potentially hurt the team with a couple boneheaded plays, which you cannot do in that situation. And part of what makes Kenny Gainwell so valuable and what has sort of opened up the snap share towards in favoring him is because the coaches like his situational awareness and his ability to catch the football and block. He's just a very astute player for being for being a rookie, and I think he does a lot of things that Miles Sanders doesn't do. Obviously, in those situational circumstances, that the coaches feel a lot more comfortable with him back there. And he also catches the ball a lot better than Miles Sanders as well, more consistently. He's just a natural hands catcher. So I think that there's a lot of there's a comfort level there when the coaches are in those situations and they want to put in a reliable player. And I think you may start to see them trend towards Kenny Gainwell a lot more in these next couple of weeks and really seeing what he's able to handle. And I do think that he does need an elevated role. But I also, in the same token, will say that Miles Sanders does need more of an opportunity because there are running lanes out there. You have to do that to help your quarterback get in the flow of the game. You have to do a lot more to help your quarterback. And you have 2 running backs that offer different skill sets, and that you're gonna have to lean on them, especially when you didn't really seem like Nick Sirianni had much of a plan going into Sunday's game. you got to run the football, and especially when your quarterback's off in the early goings. I mean, that's basic fundamental stuff, and you're going to have to do that against the Buccaneers because he cannot sit back there and throw the football 48 times like he did against the Chiefs. It's just not going to work.
Hey, the news today, Dallas Goedert. Obviously, we don't know that he's out for the game. He's a vaccinated player, which means he has to test negative 2 times within a 24-hour period. So I would imagine there's a possibility he could play in that game. But if he doesn't play, it's almost like if they only have one of the two guys, I almost think that they would utilize the tight ends more by them having to use both of them. Does that kind of bog them down a little bit?
I mean, yes and no. I think that both they're. It's almost a detriment that Dallas Goedert is such a good blocker because that's what he's sort of been typecast as because Zach Ertz is the more proficient pass catcher. So I think that they're just like Jonathan Gannon sort of finding his way. You hope that Shane Steichen, the offensive coordinator, and Nick Sirianni are sort of figuring out how to use these guys. I mean, I am baffled at the fact that the Eagles don't utilize Dallas Goedert and move him out wide when you clearly need a bigger-bodied receiver to sort of accent the finesse players, the speedy guys, the Devontae Smiths and the Jalen Reagors and the Quez Watkins. I think you need to be a little bit more creative in how you're using Dallas Goedert because he does have such a versatile skill set and he can be such a prominent factor in the red zone. And Zach Ertz, let him work over the middle of the field. But I think this week, I don't know that having 2 tight ends, to answer your question, having both of those guys really sort of hamstrings them, and they don't really know what to do. It's not like a conundrum or anything. I think that there's not really a flow or a rhythm to the offense, and you even saw Kenny Gainwell take a backseat last week. So I really don't think that plays a part, and I think they're sort of figuring out their personnel, and I think that's going to change week to week.
Okay, so give me your opinion then on the way they're using Reagor and Watkins. How should they use them? How's that going so far? Are we seeing a change?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I was having a talk with someone yesterday that, and you sort of just like you saw Kenny Gainwell sort of trending in a positive direction. I think that you saw, and obviously it was clear by looking at the snap share, that Quez Watkins has leapfrogged Jalen Reagor in the pecking order as the number 2 wide receiver on this football team, and rightfully so. Every time Quez is out there, he's making a play. Particularly in the Dallas game, he really impressed me with his ability to come out with a contested catch. He's been labeled as a linear speed guy that's sort of in that finesse mold. It's nice to see him sort of be able to come out with a play like that. I think that's going to lead to more opportunities, and it really has. And he has that vertical ability to really. You saw that 53-yarder. And Jalen Reagor, to me, I don't think the coaching staff is utilizing him properly as well. Much like Dallas Goedert, I think Jalen Reagor needs to be utilized right around the line of scrimmage, get the ball in his hands, let him make guys miss, and jet sweeps and different things like that, because he does have an explosive skill set. It's just he's not really a player that you want to throw out there and he's going to run all these routes and get open because you have so many other guys. He was drafted to be like a Tyreek Hill type player. Just get him the ball in space and let him go. But the Eagles really have not.
Andrew, do you think that Reagor's play speed matches his times? For whatever reason, to me anyway, maybe it's just because they don't give him the ball. He doesn't feel like when I watch Tyreek Hill, that guy looks elusive and fast. When I see Reagor, I don't feel the same way. Is his play speed not matching his 40 time?
That's a great point because to me, he doesn't look as fast as what his time speed would indicate. And I also thought the same thing about Shelton Gibson, who was from your alma mater, West Virginia, who was supposed to be that burner, and he never really looked to be that. The speed didn't seem to translate onto the football field. So I think there's something to that, but I also think that he needs the opportunity to prove it because he has looked pretty quick on those punt returns and in certain instances. Now, do I think that is very indicative to what his 40 time is? No, but I think Quez Watkins is clearly the fastest player on this team. But Jalen Reagor does have a dynamic skill set and elusive in the open field, and they need to take advantage of that.
Does Hurts trust Watkins more?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think from a route running standpoint, Mike, I think Quez Watkins is far ahead over where Jalen Reagor is at this point. He's a more consistent a catcher of the football. He's able to affect all three levels of the field. His body language when things aren't going his way are more positive. When things aren't going his way, you could sort of see him sulk, or you could see it's very evident in his demeanor when he's not happy about something. I think Quez Watkins, just based on the opportunities that he's had, I think he's been on the receiving end of many of Jalen's bigger pass plays this year. And I go back and play against Dallas when he came out with that contested catch. When you make plays like that, your quarterback's going to keep going back to you and have that confidence in you that you're gonna bail him out when things aren't necessarily ideal. Right. Jalen Reagor has not done that, so I think that there's something to be said for that.
What is your take on the offensive line and how that should be configured? Are they okay keeping Mailata at the right tackle? Would you like to see that change? I guess PFF has Dillard as the highest rated blocker on that line. So do we anticipate seeing the same? I know he hinted at that yesterday, but it's not that the line was a problem. I'm just kind of looking long term with Mailata. I kind of said earlier, like, hey, maybe Johnson, they don't know what's going on there. Do they look at Dillard as the left tackle and Mailata as the right tackle, beyond this year? So do you think the offensive line will stay the same for Thursday night?
I mean, outside of, Jalen Hurts getting smoked twice by Hassan Reddick, I thought Mailata did all right at right tackle. I would probably keep the line as it's currently constituted, just for continuity purposes. They've already just had so many shufflings, and it's just not a recipe for success, especially on a short week. Just keep that continuity there. I think that you have your best set of linemen out there right now, given the circumstances. So I would just keep it as it is. By the way, you mentioned Andre Dillard. Andre Dillard continues to make improvements and continues to impress each week and take that next step in his progression, and that comes with reps, and it's very encouraging to see.
Yeah, I know that. You mentioned the plays Mailata, and of course they stand out. So that Mailata gave up the 2 back-to-backs, but other than that, I thought he played pretty well in the game. Dillard has played pretty well. I guess for the people who want Dillard traded, he has upped any trade value that he may have had. All right, let me ask you about this particular matchup, because the next time we talk to you, it will be game day, and obviously we'll know a lot more. But initial thoughts on the fact that Tampa Bay's pass defense is not very good. Does that play into what Nick Sirianni wants to do?
I think they're going to be heavy pass regardless, but I think this gives them a little bit more of an excuse to do so. But there's going to be opportunities to strike deep and hit on those intermediate routes, particularly with Devontae Smith. I think he's going to have. I thought Dallas Goedert would have had opportunities to really take advantage of the middle of the field. There's going to be no Levante David, who, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated linebackers in football and has been for a number of years now. He's not going to be. He won't be playing. So I mean, they're going to throw heavy. Hopefully, it's not that 48. He's not dropping back 48 times like he did against the Chiefs. You want to see some running in there. Obviously, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are probably, I think they are the number 1 ranked run defense in football, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, you hope that doesn't turn them away, because they still need to keep that balance and at least get the running backs involved in the screen game, or try to have it a little bit more of an effective screen game. I know that can be an extension of the running game, but yeah, I mean, there's the secondary is very suspect right now for Tampa Bay. That's going to be, if they're going to capitalize, that's where it's going to be.
Yeah, and I know you hinted at the Eagles' front 4 was a big difference in the game, but the offensive line for Tampa, a much different animal. That's the strength of their team.
Absolutely, and that I even wrote about this on InsideTheBirds.com. It was nice to see Jonathan Gannon scheme up a way to take advantage of a porous Carolina offensive line, but let's see what he can do against a superior offensive line. Will you see some of the same different stunts and twists and line games, or are you going to see much of what we saw against Dallas and Kansas City, and are they going to get gouged in the running game? So, I mean, we need to see what it is, because Sirianni regresses from the Kansas City game. Gannon improved from the Kansas City game, so we really don't know what to expect going into Thursday night.
Yep, that's a great point. And there was so much maligned from Gannon. He made the adjustments. And I kind of talked about a lot last week, which was, hey, against two average offenses, Atlanta and San Francisco, you played well. Against two really good offenses, they didn't play well. That doesn't excuse you for not playing well, but most of the games they're going to play, Andrew, moving forward are Carolina, Atlanta, San Francisco level of offenses. Playing Dallas and Kansas City doesn't happen week in and week out. And I think that's something to kind of build off of, is with the second level of team, they're right there. They're toe-to-toe with that level of team right now.
Yeah, and they have playmakers, and they have the ability to put up points. And from a defensive standpoint, they have a veteran secondary. Like, this is not a youth movement by any means. Like, these guys have all played a lot of football. The defensive line is still pretty formidable, even without Brandon Graham. The linebackers are obviously substandard right now, but I mean, they do have the components to really keep pace with many of the teams that they're going to be facing. And now it's just establishing an identity on offense and on defense. You have no way to sort of depict what kind of team that they are, through the early portion of the season. They need to really establish an identity on both sides of the football.
I think it's a great point. Who are they on offense, and who do they want to be? I don't think Nick Sirianni has figured that out yet either, based on his play calling. He's Andrew DiCecco. Football at 4, Eagles and Bucs Thursday night. Don't forget, we're giving away those tickets to go to the game live. You'll have club box seats. We'll do that tonight at 5 o'clock. Andrew's back on Thursday. He'll give us a breakdown on that game and his pick right here during Football at 4. All right, Andrew, take care, buddy.
Have a good one, Mike.
Andrew DiCecco, of course, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long.